What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm getting ready to replace the rear camber arms on my 2010 Mazda 3, and I'm going to show you a little how-to on how to do it. So your rear camber arms are right here, and then you have two 17mm bolts. There's one here. Here's one's attached to the brake line here. And then, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there is one right back up there. And the head of the bolt is actually facing rear. So as you can see, I already have my impact drill with an extension on it already lined up right here. And we're gonna go ahead and see if we can get that guy off. Now I've already put a little brake free on it right there. So that's where you're gonna start. And we're gonna go ahead and take that bolt out. So I had already pre-started it right there. Take that down. Now there's a shank. I do have a adjustable style socket up there so that you can get in there a little better. So here's my brushless DeWalt impact wrench, impact drill, and then I have the attachments, extensions for it right there. So there's the first bolt that comes out. Once you get it out, just go ahead and pull the rest of it out. And then the second bolt is actually going to be right down here. So that's the second bolt, 17mm. You can also use an impact or a socket and ratchet wrench if you like to get that one out also. But don't forget to remove your brake line cable right here. Just kind of undo it so that when the bolt starts spinning, that the brake line cable doesn't start grabbing as you're taking that bolt out. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that one now. All right, guys, so if you notice there, the arm did come loose. So I got the bolt out, and the arm's literally just hanging there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and take my impact down here. Sorry, lighting's bad because I'm working outside. So I'm gonna take my impact wrench, and it's gonna go right down there. Pretty much right down here. And then be careful of your brake line here. And then you're just gonna remove that bolt. The nut on the back side is actually welded on, so you don't have to worry about putting a socket on that side. Same with the bolt that's up there on the other side. There's a welded on nut, so you do not need to have a ratchet or a wrench or something to hold the nut from spinning, because it's already welded on. So those are the two that you're gonna have to replace or remove. All right, so I had already just started it with my impact. I'm gonna go ahead and remove it as far as I can without the actual impact hitting the inner fender. So that's how you remove the lower bolt. Spin starts popping out, and there it is. Now all you're going to do is the arm should just pop out. Yep, there it goes. And here we have the rusted old OEM camber arm. And then the reverse is basically the same here. But you're probably gonna have to use a crowbar to kind of help nudge it into place there, especially with the lining up the bolts. All right guys, so here's your next step. After you get your bolts lined up with the original camber arm, you're going to go ahead and tighten your jam nut and your pinch bolt down here. I would probably suggest tightening the pinch bolt first and then your jam nut. I don't think it really makes a difference. Once you get your extension length correct, this nut right here doesn't move. That's your adjuster nut, and then that's your jam nut. So if you were to move your adjustment nut counterclockwise or clockwise, it's going to move the center of this hole up or down. So once you get your bolts in place and they're fairly free of moving, then go ahead and just start tightening down your jam nut and then your squeeze pinch bolt here. And here there's no squeeze or pinch bolt. You just line up your nut through the hole as it is. Another thing I would suggest, if you are reusing your bolts here, or if you get new bolts, I would go ahead and use some anti-seize on threads just in case. I don't plan on ever changing out these camber arms again. My car has 208,000 miles and it's a 2010, so I'll probably never change these out again. But anyways, I would probably take a wire wheel and at least clean up the original bolts, get some of the rust off. Mine actually weren't that bad and came out pretty good. Usually the shank gets really corroded and stuck in the bushing here. Now, as far as bushing goes, what I would recommend doing so it doesn't get all rusty and corroded in there is using red and tacky grease or some type of, or a wheel bearing grease that will go inside the bushing so that the bushing actually doesn't look like this over time. See all that rust and corrosion in there? That's because there's literally no type of lubricant or rust additive preventative inside the bushing. And that's basically what I do to all my bushings on all my cars. I generally put a small amount of red and tacky grease inside to prevent any type of rust formulation. And this stuff is high temp, cold weather, water, acid, rust, and corrosion resistant. So, but yeah, this is just a quick little tip on after you guys get everything lined up and prep your bolts. I would definitely use the anti-seize along with the wheel bearing grease or the red and tacky grease for installing the bolts. Well, here's the finished product for the driver's side. I got everything back in, lined up. I haven't got to the passenger side yet. That's what it should look like. I can't see the bolts. Can't see the bolts back there, but that's the bolt that you're going to be getting to right there. But other than that, guys, that's pretty much it for the rear camber arms. All right, now that I got the bolts in, so I got the one down here, and then I got the one in. Not sure if you guys can see it or not, but it's way up there, corner there. So I would just go ahead and just pre-start them before you actually tighten them all down. And then I'm gonna go ahead and tighten them down. I believe it's like 75 foot-pounds. I also used a second jack stand over here so that it'll raise and hold the control arm in place. And then the other thing to note is make sure you definitely keep the, there's the adjuster nut here. Make sure you tighten that so that it holds the extension rod in place. And then that's it for the driver's side. Now the passenger side is going to be a little more difficult, like I mentioned, because there's not a lot of room in the back there to remove the bolt. So we'll see how that goes. Passenger side, you guys see, so it's still 17 millimeter bolt here, and then there's a bolt right there, but if you look, there's not a whole lot of space. So probably gonna have to, this little bit of sheet metal might have to get bent back. Obviously it has no structural, nothing structural with the actual car itself. So if we have to bend it back, we can, but there's the actual bolt right up there. Hopefully you guys can see that. But they are 17 mil, and you will need a 17 mil ratchet wrench to get to this. Otherwise, you're just going to be cranking for a while. So we're going to see if we can break that loose. All right, guys, so I was able to actually just start this bolt just to show you guys. And like I said, on the other one, I used my 1/2-inch impact to get that going. Now, this one actually seems to be pretty easy to show you. So I used a long 17 millimeter ratchet from Amazon, way up in there. Let's see if you guys can see that or not. But so I just use one of those, and then just literally slowly just crank on it. This, and it's definitely come out. But like I said, you're gonna have to do probably remove that little piece of, bend that little piece of sheet metal back there to get that bolt out. So I'll show you that once I get the bolt pretty much all the way out. All right, guys, well, that little piece definitely holds that bolt from not wanting to come out of the wall. There's the actual bolt in there. I don't have my light here. So there's the bolt back there, if you guys can see it. There it is, and then there's the piece of metal right there. So what I'm doing is I'm taking like a little crowbar, I'm bending it forward just enough that I could probably finish it off. Basically, you really just need just a tiny bit to move it forward. That should clear the bolt, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that right there should allow me to get that bolt out of there. All right, guys, not sure if you can see that or not, but we have plenty of clearance to get the rest of that bolt out there. Let's see if we can just get it out of there. All right, guys, so hopefully you guys can see that right there. Kind of hard to see it, but plenty of room. Trying to get that focus, and there it is. Plenty of room now. And we took that little piece of sheet metal right there and just bent it forward, so it's a lot easier to get out now and put in. All right, now that I have the other passenger side control arm out, as you can see, like I said, just bend that tab, that piece of sheet metal, basically just protecting, I believe, the part of the gas tank, the evap. But anyways, the camber arm is off, and then we're basically just going to do the same thing as we did on the driver's side. We're going to line the bolts up, tighten down your jam nut. Well, you're going to adjust, tighten down your jam nut, tighten your pinch bolt, and then reinstall, and then it should be good to go. All right, here's the pretty much the final install. I got that bolt all the way back up in there. Not sure if you guys can still see it or not. It's way up in there. Trying to get a better view for you if I can. But Yep, there it is. It's already, the threads have already been started. And then, like I said, just bend that tab right there in the front, bend it forward, and you have plenty of access to remove and install that bolt. And then here, the front is already ready to go. I just have to line the bolt up. And then these little aids help out a lot, for me at least. I use a jack to hold up the camber arm in place, so that's a big help. And then I use the front jack up underneath the brake on the side here. Now I would do not go metal to metal on the brake. That's why I have my jack pad underneath, so it doesn't damage the rotor. But this will actually, if it raises up, and this will tilt the arm in so that you can line up, actually tilt the hub in so that you can line up the camber arm. And then the rest of it's just going to be with a screwdriver, and then I'm just going to finagle it up and down to get the bolt to line up. And that's it, guys. Well, here's the final steps. I tightened down the front bolt here. As you can see, it's coming out, coming through the other end. And then you're just basically just gonna retighten the one up there. And I would definitely suggest, like I said in the earlier, to use a long ratchet, 17 mil ratchet. Otherwise, you're just gonna be cranking for days. So that's pretty much it, guys. Hope this helps. Oh, also don't forget to tighten your adjuster here. Just double check. Make sure the jam nut is tight before you put your car on the ground, and then take it to a alignment shop. So other than that, guys, that's really it for the install. Pretty self-explanatory and straightforward. 2 bolts on each side. Adjust your extenders out to fit, and that's it.